Imagine waking up tomorrow to a map that has been completely rewritten. Overnight, the Indian subcontinent splinters along its borders, breaking into 28 fully independent nations and 8 sovereign territories. The logistical reality sets in by morning. Domestic terminals at airports like Mumbai and Delhi suddenly require passports and international visas for entry. Interstate highways, previously the main arteries of free movement, abruptly halt at newly erected militarized checkpoints. By the end of the week, the economic shockwaves hit. Deeply integrated supply chains, where raw materials are mined in one state, refined in a second, and assembled in a third, are severed by hard borders and sudden tariffs. This thought experiment forces a unique geopolitical question. If every state suddenly had to rely entirely on its own natural resources, domestic industries, and local population, who actually holds the upper hand? Survival in this environment depends completely on the leverage a single region can project. It triggers a race for regional dominance, and the starting line is wildly uneven. The most obvious metric for projecting national power is pure capital, and the first place to look for that is along the southern and western coastlines. Tamil Nadu operates an enormous industrial base, holding the manufacturing capacity to produce 1 out of every 2 smartphones made across the entire subcontinent. As global corporations look to diversify their supply chains away from Beijing through the China Plus One strategy, the southern state has positioned itself with the exact infrastructure required to absorb those massive international contracts. Further north up the coast, Gujarat commands a massive financial architecture. Purpose-built megaprojects like Dalera Smart City and Gift City already manage over $100 billion in cross-border capital and semiconductor manufacturing. This animated chart illustrates the scale of this coastal wealth. You can see the export volumes of Gujarat and Tamil Nadu here, which completely dwarf the combined averages of the newly landlocked central and northern nations. But generating $1 trillion in wealth is only an advantage if you can keep it. Possessing that kind of capital without significant natural defenses simply makes a newly independent state a highly lucrative target. That shifts the balance of power toward the extreme terrains of the north and northeast. These regions offer leverage that capital cannot buy: natural fortification. The Himalayas provide an immediate defensive shield. Moving conventional military forces through winding, high-altitude mountain passes is nearly impossible for an invading army. These high-altitude nations also hold the ultimate strategic leverage. The highland sources within their borders grant absolute control over the massive freshwater networks flowing downward to the rest of the continent. On the western border, harsh climates offer their own form of defense. The vast, arid expanses of the Thar Desert create a grueling, resource-draining barrier against large-scale land incursions. There is clear historical precedent for utilizing these barriers. For centuries, empires were held at bay by forces utilizing the steep, isolated ridges of the Deccan Plateau to maintain their sovereignty. This map highlights another geographic weapon: the Siliguri Corridor. This 22-kilometer wide strip of land is the only physical connection to the northeastern states. Severing this specific corridor instantly cuts off all surface trade and access for the entire region. Nations controlling these geographic fortresses and resource chokeholds wouldn't need a massive GDP to project power. They could simply embargo the water supply or block trade routes, paralyzing the wealthier, unprotected economic engines below. Beyond raw capital and rugged terrain, there is a third method of projecting influence: soft power and cultural diplomacy. A deep historical legacy offers immediate geopolitical legitimacy on the world stage. Regions with ties to ancient, expansive maritime powers, like the Chola Empire, already have an established identity that spans the Indian Ocean. Kerala projects a different kind of international influence. Its massive, highly skilled diaspora is deeply integrated into global industries and foreign governments, securing an outsized voice in international relations. That distinct cultural identity directly funds the state. Its unique traditions and landscapes draw heavy international tourism, creating a continuous flow of foreign currency. Even agricultural practices serve this purpose. By exporting specialized, high-demand commodities globally, local traditions establish a daily presence in markets across the world. Cultural branding and established diaspora networks allow a nation to forge deep international alliances. Often, these ties secure foreign aid and military backing much faster than relying entirely on a domestic military force. Pulling back to evaluate the fractured map as a whole reveals the fatal flaw in the thought experiment. Not a single state possesses all three pillars of national power. Each region's individual strength is offset by a critical, systemic vulnerability. The strengths are highly lopsided. A trillion-dollar tech economy lacks defensible borders, while impenetrable mountain fortresses lack deep-water ports. Severing internal borders strips away mutual support. The simulation proves independence primarily creates exposure. The true strategic advantage of these states is their function as an interdependent ecosystem. The coastal wealth funds the northern defenses, and the northern resources supply the southern factories. Bringing together such incredibly diverse populations into a single cohesive force is a historical feat of unique magnitude. It turns local vulnerabilities into collective stability. This unified structure creates a global powerhouse defined by a rare and delicate balance. India represents a superpower as diverse and uniquely integrated as any the world has ever seen.